whether civilization was possibly wiped out by a tsunami. Although intriguing, Malta's ruined temples don't offer any hard evidence that they were the site of Plato's Atlantis. Perhaps the hunt needs to be broadened and taken further afield. Maybe Atlantis doesn't lie in Europe at all, but off America. In recent years, the idea that Atlantis lies in the Americas has become a New Age obsession. The idea stems from the bizarre utterances of self-proclaimed psychic Edgar Cayce. In the 1940s, Cayce made a whole series of astonishing claims about Atlantis, even predicting that it would rise again. Expect it, he declared, in 1968 in the area of Bimini in the Bahamas. In 1968, a pilot flying over the Bimini Islands noticed a line of rectangular stones beneath the sea. Cayce's followers thought his prophecy had come true. The formation, about 1,200 feet long, became known as the Bimini Road. Laura and Greg Little are amateur sleuths and followers of Cayce's psychic readings. They believe that it is part of the lost island of Atlantis.
There's two points of view on what the Bimini Road is. One of the points of view, which has been put forth by a handful of geologists, is that the Bimini Road was a huge piece of natural beach rock, and that it fractured in these straight lines, forming squares and rectangular blocks, and that's what we're looking at. The second group of people believe that the Bimini Road was man-made, and what it actually was either a platform, could be a breakwater, or it may well have been a wall which collapsed.
Greg and Laura Little believe that if the Bimini Road was part of Atlantis, then there should be other structures nearby. Hearing of a similar formation off the coast of Andros, the largest of the Bahamian Islands, they started searching the area. In 2003, Greg Little found an underwater formation that looked just like the Bimini Road.
At first I saw nothing. The water was quite deep and it just was sand everywhere. Then all of a sudden, there these stones were. And I saw one after another, and then I realized, well, there's more layers. And I kept going further and further, and I couldn't find the end of it.
Didn't have much film left on his camera. He only got 2 or 3 shots of the blocks. And when we developed them and he showed them to me, I couldn't see it. So about a month later, we went back, and this time I got out and snorkeled with him. And as we went along, just regular seabed, and then all of a sudden, here's the blocks, and it's unmistakable. When you see them, it's just too consistent. The size, the lines are very straight. It's just unlike anything we've ever seen before. And I had no doubt once I saw it. I knew why he was excited, and we were both excited then.
Without a geological expert to guide them, the Littles have convinced themselves that they have found a harbour or wharf many thousands of years old.
It sits right next to the tongue of the ocean. And even if the ocean levels were 300 feet lower than, this platform would have sat right on the edge of the tongue of the ocean. You could have had massive structures on it, and it would have had a commanding view of any ships moving up and down this very deep channel that's quite wide.
Greg and Laura Little are not scientists, but they have spent years researching mysteries all over the world, including many theories about Atlantis. Now they've returned to Andros to look for new evidence that the structures they found are man-made. If they can show that the stone blocks are the work of an ancient civilization, Greg believes it will rewrite the history of this region.
Archaeology says that there were no human beings anywhere in the Bahamas till about 1000 AD, which is astonishing because we know that the rest of the Americas were settled thousands of years before that. And that would mean, if this was man-made, it would mean that this area was settled far earlier than that. So it would have to rewrite the history of the Bahamas. We think the Bahamas was part of a maritime culture that was in operation during the Ice Age. and that maritime culture, for lack of a better term, is called Atlantis.
In support of their ideas, the Littles have investigated another stone structure, this time above water. These rocks line a hill on Andros Island. Some islanders suggest that they could be the remains of a hilltop fortification. This site has a commanding view over the ocean and the interior of the island, making it a perfect location for a fort or ceremonial building. No one knows how old the site is, but Laura Little believes that it could have been built by an ancient Indian tribe from the Americas.
It does remind us an awful lot of what we've seen with Mayan ruins.
The Mayans from Central America could have crossed the ocean to the Bahamas, trading and establishing communities. In theory, people could have settled these islands earlier than initially thought. But if they did, what became of them? If the Littles' theory is to stand up, they have to explain why there is no sign of people living on these islands before 1000 AD. It's possible that if people were here, they were wiped out by a natural disaster. But if some terrible event did obliterate them, what was it? Greg and Laura Little believe their end may have come from outer space. Their evidence comes from the eastern part of the United States. Here, between Delaware and Florida, lie thousands of oval depressions, known as the Carolina Bays. According to the Littles, around 11,000 years ago, a massive comet entered the Earth's atmosphere. It fractured into two major parts and millions of tiny pieces. The pieces smashed into the eastern half of the United States, creating the Carolina Bays, while the larger parts landed in the Atlantic Ocean. According to this theory, on land the impacts caused raging fires, burning everything, while at sea they created giant waves.
When those two big pieces of the comet struck the Atlantic Ocean, they caused tsunami waves that I believe wiped these islands clean of everything that was on. That's why we can't find evidence of humans here before the year 1000, but that's why we can find something like the Bimini Road and this Andros platform. These are massive, built right at the edge of the water, and while everything on top of them may be swept away, the foundations themselves remain.
There's just one problem with this theory. Scientists studying the Carolina Bays have found no evidence of a comet impact. Instead, they suggest that they were formed by glaciation or wind erosion, though they cannot be certain. Even though what created the Carolina Bays remains a mystery, Greg and Laura resolutely hang on to the belief that the Bahamas is the most likely site of Atlantis. In their hunt for new evidence, they trawl the area around the underwater stones they found last year. But this latest search is proving frustrating.
Well, we were here 4 times last year, and since then, the bottom has been covered with sand. There's a lot more turtle grass on the bottom, too. Nevertheless, we did see a lot of areas that we didn't see at all last year. Actually, the formation is larger than we thought. I managed to clean off several seams between stones, but I can't tell whether they're man-made or not. I'm not really disappointed, but I can say this, that if we don't find out within the next few years what this is, we probably won't know, because it'll be covered with coral by then.
What do mainstream scientists make of the Littles' claims? Dr. Robert Schock is a geologist at Boston University. Does he think the Bimini Road could be the remains of Atlantis?
I have to admit I've not been to Bimini to look at it firsthand, but what I've seen of the photographs, what I've seen of the best technical reports, which I have scoured through, I'm not even convinced it's artificial, much less Atlantis. And I have had experience diving on other sites that were said to be artificial.